Welcome to Deges and Dragons.
I thought this was going to be hard, but...
Welcome to Deges and Dragons.
Who wants some of the Ripper?
They're state champs, baby. Woo!
He's clearly Captain. I'm a man of the people.
Shattered world.
Ripper knows. Ripper always knows.
And welcome to another episode of the Degecast, the supplemental podcast for our YouTube show, Deges and Dragons. I'm your host, Nate Lindberg. You can find me all over social media at Nate Lindberg, and you can follow our brand on social media at Degetime. That's Degetime. Hey, we just watched the last episode of Shattered, of our look at Shattered, the first series of Shattered. Hey, spoilers, there might be a second one, folks, coming up. Probably in about a year or so, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure, when the time comes. To celebrate this look at Shattered, we actually sat down with Tex, Lost, and Zip from It's Never Dark Enough, the developers of Shattered. Back in March, we sat down with these guys and talked to them about It's Never Dark Enough and how they came to be, talked to them about Shattered and what they think Shattered's role in a therapeutic gaming environment would look like. You know, Conrad and I were talking last March and we were like, why don't we get this interview in the bag? And that way we can just release it right after the last episode of Shattered airs. And I'm like, hey, let's do it. So back in March, we sat down with these three gentlemen and we talked to them about their game. That ended up leading into a bit of a friendship with these guys, and that's why we ended up getting the interviews with them earlier in the month. So, keep in mind that this was recorded about 3 months ago, just after the whole coronavirus thing happened, right after lockdown started. This is right when all of this started happening. We start talking a little bit about that at the onset of the interview. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of context as to why we're talking about going into lockdown when we've been in lockdown for quite some time at this point. And without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome to the Degecast, Tex, Lost, and Zip. Tex, say hey.
Howdy, howdy.
And Lost, how you doing today?
Oh, not bad.
All right, good to hear. And Zip, how you doing, man?
I'm awesome, man.
Excellent, excellent. And as always, we also have Conrad here as well. Unfortunately, it looked like Tony did have to go to work today, so don't have Tony with us, but we do have Conrad. Hey, how are you doing, Conrad?
Just swell, Nate.
Excellent. So now we're actually going to sit down with these guys and talk about Shattered, and kind of their game, how it came to be, their vision. So we've got a pretty good list of questions lined up for these guys, and hopefully some more will come up organically as we talk. So Conrad, I'm going to throw it over to you to get things started off.
So I think naturally the first place to begin is, how did the creators meet and form INDE?
So how long of a story do you want?
Give us the full story.
All right. So, in the beginning, there was nothing. Just kidding. So we, Lost and I had met initially as part of a digital tabletop group back in the heyday of Skype. And apologies if you hear my dog barking in the distance. I've shut the door, but there's only so much I can do about that.
That's all right. You guys might hear mine barking in the background too.
Okay, cool. So we had I hopped in as starting with Warhammer 40K on the tabletop, and I got sucked into a Pathfinder game, and then from there, it's all kind of been history. But three of us came from that group. We started working on a tabletop RPG of a different name with a different guy. We, without, telling that entire saga, those of us who were on that project ended up leaving and taking a lot of our material with us. And when we left, we were like, well, we did all this work. We're not going to leave it, not complete it. So we picked up the pieces and started building Shattered, or what became Shattered.
So essentially you had met online via tabletop gaming, and through sort of homebrew, just kind of homebrewing your own stuff, you kept coming up with more and more pieces, and then said, okay, we have enough of a foundation that let's gather these and bring these forward to a complete project, if I'm summarizing that correctly.
Sort of, yeah. There was another member of the group was trying to build his own fresh tabletop RPG and had enlisted us to help develop it. And after, I don't even think development lasted a year. I mean, maybe.
It was 3 or 4 months, and it was kind of brutal. Yeah.
The guy leading the project was not the greatest, didn't have the greatest leadership qualities, and after after a number of incidents, every member of the dev team decided to leave and take our material with us. And then we left, we started Shattered. He continued development on his game. He brought in a new group of people to help him work on his project, and they left as well a few months later, and we picked up a few of them as they left.
Wow.
Yeah, that'd be me. I was round.
Yep.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool. Yeah. No.
Wow.
That's like that's actually a really really interesting story. It's like, I mean, you guys essentially met around tabletop gaming and you kind of went from there. That's cool. And then who I missed who was it that got picked up in that second round?
Tex.
Oh really? Okay. Cool.
Myself and Lith were round 2.
Okay. Cool. What kind of like gave you guys the inspiration then for Shattered? I mean, was this a lot of stuff that you brought from the prior game? I know you said obviously you brought some of your IP or whatever from this former project to this one. Was that kind of part of the inspiration for it, or did you have something a little different in mind when you guys started working on Shattered?
I think, and Lost, feel free to jump in here if you have better recollection of it than I do. But the original game that we left had kind of a more mystical air to it, but there was like a world that was in pieces, not so much apocalyptic, but something about the world in pieces is something we liked. And so most of what we took with us was all system material. We didn't take any lore or anything with us because the long and short of it was we weren't really allowed to develop any lore in the previous project. So we were kind of like, hey, we like this, we kind of had a steampunk feel going on in the original project, and we took that with us and said, hey, what if we actually made the world broken? And within, I think, 48 hours of us departing that other project, we'd had the logo that exists on the book today. We'd had the name, and a big portion of what the world looked like. It was all just pulled in from steampunk and some of our other various interests.
I don't know if you remember, but that first 48, it was 6 to 8 hours of sessions of just people hammering out exactly what we wanted.
Oh yeah, it was nonstop. It was like a crazy workshop almost. We were on for 6 or 8 hours at a time, just like slamming ideas onto the page. And we even got as detailed as discussing what weather patterns would look like.
Oh wow.
And things like that. So we were just brainstorming, and it was it had an explosion of ideas that first 48 hours after we left.
No, that's cool. That's cool. And I can kind of relate to that, because it's a lot of Conrad and I will start sitting down and thinking of ideas for the show, and the next thing you know, it's oh hey, and we come up with something really cool. So I like hearing stories about that, and brainstorming and collaboration is always a good thing. Always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually, after a while, we started calling it theory crafting, and now whenever we have one of those moments, that's we have a specific area to just brainstorm stuff, and that's what we call it.
I like that. Yeah.
I can actually envision this in my head, where I'm familiar with the lore now, and just basically I picture you guys as deities overseeing Fenris, and just commanding what sort of like laws of the universe are being placed in.
Infinite cosmic powers.
Right. Yeah.
Dance, my puppets. So how long did you guys work on this project before starting to actually like launching a Kickstarter and kind of moving forward with you getting this out for the world to see?
Oh, that's hazy for me. Lost, do you recall how long it was? At least
approximately 6 years.
Wow.
I think.
It was somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's cool. I mean, in obviously, like you guys put a lot into it in that 6 years. That's not. I'm just kind of surprised. Like 6 years is a long time to put into a project. I commend that. I commend that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it. Looking back on it now, so much of it just flew by. But I mean, a lot of what you see in the core book is just these systems, these ideas have existed for a long time, and they've been constantly iterated and updated as other systems have come into place and other aspects of the lore have been established and things like that. So, what we had then is absolutely nothing like what we have now. And we actually had an alpha playtest book printed many years ago.
Oh, that thing.
Many years ago, and it's a little. We dumbed it down to hand out at a couple of events and hand out to people that we met and things like that. And it's like it might be 50, 75 pages, and you go flipping through that and you compare it to the core book, and it's absolutely a different entity entirely.
And it's cool to go back and see like the evolution of a project like that.
After you get over the cringing, yeah.
So how many members are you, and that's held together for that long? So like how many people form the council of INDE that decides everything?
There's six of us.
6 of us currently. We've had a couple people come and go over the years, but it's always been about 6.
So I think too, where what type of work do you all do outside of Shattered? And so like, just as a general idea of this, because this is all kind of Shattered's development has been outside of work, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I will never openly admit that I ever worked on Shattered while I was being paid to do other things, but
I'll edit it. I'll edit that out. So
yeah. What was I saying? Oh yes, I'm an IT guy.
Hey, IT
trade.
guys unite!
Yeah, woo! This has been these past few weeks have been our moment to shine. Really, I hope any IT guys that hear this, I hope your management is treating you well and is thanking you for whatever you're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Because so much stuff that's going on that would not have happened without us working all those hours to set up remote computers and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, no, definitely a big shout out to the IT guys in this weird time. My company, it was actually kind of cool. Like my company, we're a SaaS company, and not just the CEO gave us a big shout out, but one of the just an employee on one of the IT Slack channels, gave us a big shout out, and we got a lot of reactions to thumbs up and like 100s and stuff. Like it was cool. Everybody seems to be appreciating it, which is weird because a lot of times, as I'm sure IT can be a pretty thankless job.
It usually is. That's the default. So certainly, enjoying the thanks that I've been seeing.
Yeah.
Now I'll never forget it.
No, exactly. What about you other guys? What do you do when you're not working on Shattered?
Well, I'm actually in oil and gas.
All right.
Went to school for geology and got my master's in it. Actually, a geotech rather than a geologist. Basically, I just kind of play with data all day and keep people from doing dumb things.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's not far removed from IT. So
yeah, keep people from doing dumb things. Yep.
And I actually own a gun shop.
Oh, cool, nice.
Yeah, so I think that is a very cool setup, and I was kind of hoping that was what was going to result from that, instead of everybody saying, oh, we're all in the same field. And so the next part of that question would be, so what about tabletop role-playing games are each of you drawn to, where you're all doing different things career-wise, and then this is sort of like your passion that's uniting you?
Yeah, it definitely is for me. I mean, working on this project kind of made me realize how much I loved storytelling. And, one of the things I learned about myself working on this project was that I've been doing this since I was a kid. I've been building Legos since I could buy them. And I've always had like the hidden base with the rebels fighting against, whatever my semblance of the Star Wars Empire was. But I've been constantly like telling stories without even realizing it. So finally sitting down and doing this, really kind of turned a light bulb on in my head and realized this is something that I really, really cared about doing. And at this point, like if I could make this full time, I would. It's just a matter of getting there,
Oh yeah, no, I completely understand that. Because I mean, this project that we're working on, both podcasts, Deech's Dragons, it's for me at least, it's almost a full-time job on its own, and I would love to make it my full-time job, but unfortunately, it doesn't keep the lights on as of yet.
No, I feel you.
For me, it's all about the world building. I like sitting down and building things, kind of like Sip said. For me, it was Legos as well. When I joined Shattered all those years ago, I pretty much cranked out with about 50% of what we have vampires within like a week.
Well, he had, yeah. So Tex was kind of a unique situation because before he left that other project, he was also working with us. He was just kind of flipping back and forth a little bit. And we were fine with that. The other guy didn't seem to mind at the time. And so, yeah, he had just like joined up and started working on stuff. And I think it was like the first week you dropped like, God, it was like 25 pages of vampire lore or something ridiculous like that.
It's a good half of the vampire lore we have currently.
And then we spent the next 6 years trying to pare it down.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
Make it fit the book.
Yeah, so yeah, when he needs to dump an idea out there, he does it in high page counts.
Sounds like it.
And for me, same thing. I do love building new systems, building new lore. I've got so many like notes on what we can add, and then I know like only a small fraction of it is going to actually make the cut, essentially. But yeah, it's just something I always love doing.
So how often do you guys come up with like new ideas and new things for Shattered that don't end up making the cut, as you kind of alluded to there?
Weekly. Yeah, let's be honest. It's pretty much weekly.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, everyone is encouraged to, like, if they have an idea, to jot it down, let it percolate until it turns into something they feel comfortable with presenting to the rest of the group. And then as we say it runs the gauntlet. People start poking holes in it. We start trying to work out how, if the system is going to step on the toes of anything else, we start beating it up, and then give it enough time. Eventually, if it makes it out the other side, it'll be something that we can put out into the world.
That's cool. I mean, not every idea is always something that not every idea is a good idea. So it's cool that you guys have a process, or even if it's an informal process, to kind of like weed out the ideas that are good for the game and for the group as a whole, and pass through the ideas that actually work. I like that.
Well, and sometimes you get a weird idea that doesn't really make any sense, but sometimes that'll tip off somebody else.
Yeah,
and they'll come up with something. One of the other guys in the team, Lith, who isn't here with us today, we call him the idea gun, because he like rapid fires ideas, and like realistically, most of them are like off the wall, left field, sometimes kind of wacky, but they'll they'll inspire us to try and like, okay, how do we actually make that idea fit or work or something like that? And then, every now and again, of course, he drops some crazy idea that we pick up and run with. So,
Just out of sheer curiosity, any idea in particular jump out at you that sounded stupid, weird, and crazy that actually turned out to be something really cool?
oh God, there's so many. I'm gonna have to think about it, to be honest with you.
Nah, no worries, no worries. I figured I'd ask.
I'll
Didn't
come
he
back
come up
around
with
to it if I come up with one.
Did
Sure.
he come up with Locaran? Like almost in its entirety?
Yes. Yeah. He decided he wanted to add a city, so he added a city. And at first we were kind of like, we don't know about this. It sounded kind of like not at the time. We're trying to build this world that's really heavily steampunk, and we hadn't at the time when Lith joined on the team with Tex, we hadn't quite come to the realization that this was going to be something that was so much more than just one genre. And so at the time we're trying to be all like, all like dark and brooding and edgy, and what Lith suggested was a little too bright and colorful for us at the time. But then as the world started to develop, this idea of like this flourishing trade city actually fit really well right in the middle of it. And that's how it actually worked out. It's practically in the middle of the continent.
That's cool.
That's great, and so much cool history came from that, with like the warring over the clean water and whatnot, and signing like those new accords. And for people who haven't read the core book, read it so you know what we're talking about. But Trumpet Royale, our character, is from Locaran. That's how you pronounce it? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's super cool, and it is interesting because one of the things I'm so drawn to about Shatter is that there are these various elements that don't seem like they would fit, but like they just do. Like it's cohesive, and it does all make sense to me, at least. These ideas are just intermingled and meshed together, and they just function well. Like I never would have thought of a mushroom person standing next to a vampire, and next to like some little telepathic person. These various races and cultures and stuff, and it all just does it. It comes together really, really well. So this process sounds great too, and that also makes me think. So you have these weekly roundtables. Do each of you sort of govern like particular aspects of the lore, or are you just all looking over everything every week?
It depends.
Yeah, there's certain things that people are the official leader of. Like, you don't mess with vampires without talking to me.
Yeah, I was
You
just
don't
about to
mess
say
with
that.
the currency system without talking to Lith and to Pole. You don't mess with the magic systems without talking to Lost. Things like that. Or like with alchemy and kind of like biomods, that'd be Zip. So you have things that you're kind of like, you know more than everybody else because you're kind of one that mostly designed it. But we all kind of throw ideas in. Yeah,
that makes sense to me too, because like reading through, it seems like each section is addressed with like a degree of expertise, as if it's not just a bunch of people who know stuff about all of it. It's like, oh yes, like somebody like really carefully crafted this aspect.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you. And it's completely by accident. Together, the six of us make one functional person, I promise.
Accident. Do you know how many times we've gone over and reworked over and over and over again?
Yeah, I think the City of Pulse has had at least a dozen iterations.
Give or take, yeah. I mean, the wall was always there, but how it was laid out and how the military branches work, looking at you, Lith, and your dip dive. And
that's Lith and Cody came up with some military branches of the city that they were called, it was like Distraction Expedition Retrieval Professionals, and they called them the Derp Squad. And it was like, it's freaking funny, but at the same time, like it makes no sense in context to everything else, so we had to change it. But lots of little things like that were just like bits of how the history and all that just have been replaced over and over, and that's not just true for Pulse; it's true for all of it, pretty much.
So, what have you found to be therapeutic working on this project for yourselves?
Well, for me, it was more of a creative outlet. Definitely good to blow off steam when you're frustrated from work, dealing with people who think they know better than they do. I'm sure y'all understand that.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't I do it this way? Yeah, but no. But yeah, so
Yeah.
it's nice to sit down and like critique people who are like-minded, and that doesn't happen often, if almost ever. No one's really a smart-ass know-it-all unless it's jokingly.
I'll give you a word text. It's ultra crepidarian. Is a person who offers advice and opinions beyond their expertise.
That, yes.
I am going to add that to my vernacular.
Yeah. I had that up on my board at my whiteboard at a previous IT job that I had.
Oh yeah, I've never had a user like that ever in
Never.
my life. No, never.
I know, speaking for me, that the whole aspect of writing has become a deeply personal thing, because partway through working on this, Shattered became work, and I needed something else to become the therapeutic aspect to give me a break from Shattered. And so now I'm writing, started writing short stories, working on a novel, things like that. But for me, a lot of the lore of Shattered, the idea of Shattered is that, people are really, really resilient, and you can have quite literally, your whole life shattered by something and still somehow find a way to put the pieces back together on the other side and reinvent yourself into something completely different. And that's one of the things that attracts me to the genres that you see in play in Shattered is horror and things like that, is that there's always this light at the other end getting through whatever it is. And so that speaks to me at a therapeutic level, and hopefully I hope it speaks to other people as well.
I feel like that actually speaks volumes in kind of today's day and age, and this whole COVID-19 thing we're all living through. It's like, we got to try and find a light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to come, and I'm sure we'll all pick up the pieces. But now what you just said kind of definitely rang true to me, at least in this current situation we're in.
Yeah, and it's something that we actually did talk about at the end of our therapeutic wrap up, was the ability to confront and overcome fear and darkness, and so that is one of the things that we do discuss about what is great as a therapeutic aspect of this game.
Yeah.
And I think Lost. What about you? What have you found to be therapeutic working on this project?
Oh, I mean, I always find it fun. Even today, like I will find fun in coming up with new systems, new ideas, new lore, and it's just a nice little outlet to have when you have some spare time and to write stuff down.
Yeah, we've been working on some potentially new material, and I can already see the sparks of creativity, taking hold.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I've got some potential campaign starters I'm working on. May never come out, but it's fun.
Yeah. No,
yeah, that's awesome.
Even if it doesn't ever see the light of day, it's cool to just like work on and kind of take your mind off of like day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know for me personally, tabletop playing has had a profound impact on my own sort of sanity, and it's relevant to what we were just discussing about confronting horrors and evolving. And so I guess not to get too deep into it, but I used to be in physically great shape and play lots of sports, and illness has really broken that down, and my physical ability went from that to now my wife does any physical activity required around our house as a disparity there. And playing games like this, I get to still put myself in a position where I'm heroic in a way and struggling to battle, but in a positive way. When I say that, like struggle, like to be human is to struggle and overcome, and that's something that really speaks to me, and again why I was really drawn to another reason I was drawn to this game. So yeah,
there's a lot of potential. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the news articles and things about D&D and other RPGs used to help ex-cons readjust to society, to help at-risk kids deal with issues and things like that. There's a great I think they're called the Badhana Group. I might be butchering that name, but they run
Badhana Group.
Yeah, they run a event every year. Maybe not this year for obvious reasons, but they run a convention called Save Against Fear. And it's all kind of built on the real psychological benefits that we've observed through storytelling in this fashion.
Actually, a good our good friend and the creator of Project Biomotus rather, Bear. He actually put them in touch with us. So we're hoping, COVID-19 willing, we hope to actually make it to Save the Fear this year.
I would love to make it out at some point as well. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, no, I really like what they're doing, and I mean it's very, very, very similar to kind of our mission and what we're looking at doing. So I would love to be able to make it out there and participate. I think it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too that where I know Dungeons and Dragons is getting so much attention, but there are a lot of other tabletop role-playing games out there, and they have different values. I firmly believe that they're the way that you can do like counseling and therapeutic work varies between these games, and you can get a lot more out of certain things you're trying to address with different games.
Sure.
I would completely agree with that. And in just kind of doing this project, I mean, I've talked about this a little bit, with you guys private, on we've got a Discord that we're all part of, and I've talked to them on that. And I've talked a little bit about it on like the first episode of the Degecast, that I was not really a huge tabletop gamer coming into this. I played here and there over the years, but it wasn't really my go-to, my passion or anything like that. And to be honest, I don't think it necessarily still is my passion is tabletop gaming, but I'm really starting to enjoy it and kind of develop a much larger appreciation for it. You're doing this project, and all of the different games that we played so far, and sitting down with Conrad and kind of breaking down why he thinks this game would be a good thing for an alcoholism type of a group, or group with kids, or the game Ghost Ops, which was all military based, why it might be good for veterans, and it's really kind of opened up this world for me that's like, you can take all of these different games and they have these different unique qualities that could really be used to kind of get people thinking in a different way, or heck, in the case of Shattered, overcome fears, or things of that nature. So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So what do you guys think? Well, I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit. One of the questions we wanted to ask you guys is, what do you think Shattered can help other people with? And I know part of that is obviously overcoming fears, but is there anything else you guys might want to touch on, like what what Shattered might be able to do to kind of help people come out of their shells, or anything like that?
Well, at this point in quarantine, probably boredom.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Boredom, sociability, fear. Hopefully, if things go as planned, we can do some other therapeutic things in Shattered as well.
Yeah, I think, I know I had brought up in your Discord server my ideas around trying to build a addiction system into Shattered, and as someone who has dealt with, even though I've never been officially diagnosed, who probably has depression, and has dealt with things like suicide and things like that when I was a teenager, RPGs in a lot of ways offer a very real opportunity to overcome some of the things that might be dragging you down, especially if you do suffer from depression or anxiety or something like that. I know for me personally, as a way of dealing with that, we'll call it what it is, effectively that monster, is that I need projects. I need to be involved with things constantly so that, when I wake up tomorrow, if I have a really bad day or a bad week, I don't want to leave without seeing something completed. To be able to have an RPG exist in someone's life who may be struggling with something like that and maybe on the edge of maybe attempting suicide, having a small group of people that you can hopefully share some laughs with, and you have this character that's going through a story. Hopefully, RPGs can serve a purpose to make that person say, okay, well, I want to get to that next session, so not today. I'll wait till next week. And then next week they'll say, well, I want to get to the next session because it's getting really good, or we've got a boss fight next week, or, whatever it is. These can really serve a purpose to hopefully enable people to stick around.
Yeah, I never actually really thought about that as, kind of using it as a way to kind of, get to that next point. I really enjoyed the session. I want to get to that boss fight, or I want to, explore the next part of this dungeon, or what have you, in this next session, kind of as a way to, build yourself up. If you are kind of in a down spot or in a depressive funk, if you will, kind of give you something to look forward to. I hadn't actually really thought of it in that way as a way to use RPG as therapy, and that kind of just, I don't know, it kind of just blew my mind a little bit, but it makes a lot of sense.
It's something I would love to pursue at a larger scale. It's just I don't have the resources for it, but I would love to one day see a network of trained GMs that are trained in dealing with mental health and dealing with people that have depression and anxiety and things like that, and having a network of GMs that connect with the worst off people and get them into playing tabletop RPGs just so they don't go off and do something worse.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's really
a fantastic idea.
The purpose of our show. I mean, it's not just to, I mean, one, it is to get people to actually try them. It's like we're showing these games off and also teaching how to do it to make it, more palpable, to make it more accessible, and just that initial access to begin playing, but also for counselors who have interest to also learn and see how accessible it is to transfer. And that's why we talk about afterward, like, oh, we believe that these are, X, Y, Z therapeutic components of this game. And you were just talking about very real things that we do address, and with like suicide, and like number one protective factor is, positive relationships and forming RPG teams. Like that's number one. Yeah, it's like your team should, hypothetically all have laughs together, but also have each other's backs. You're looking to take down a boss together. It's not like you're actively stabbing each other while the boss laughs, unless it's some sort of mind flayer controlling all of you.
Right.
Sure.
But and also setting future goals in a positive frame, which you all said, like, getting to that next point. And so even if like that was just by accident, those were real things that we look at with like cognitive behavioral therapy and suicide and depression. So everything you're talking about is what we believe and what we're trying to ultimately get that path going as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and like right at the end of every episode, Conrad writes up, he's got like GM notes and story notes of like, new GM wants to pick up a game and that we started, they can actually pick up our game and just continue right on. So it kind of gives a little bit of a path for somebody to try out one of these games and maybe maybe help other people help other people out along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have to say, your guys' instructional portion is incredible. Like,
Mhm.
I was like,
Right.
God, I don't think I could have made a better instructional video on how to like build a character or how the system works together. And I think it helps that you guys haven't been inundated with it like we have.
Yeah, it's almost second
That's
nature
true.
to us.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean,
Oh
Conrad,
yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like I take pride in writing this stuff because like I really want these games to succeed. Because like I love playing them. So so thank you. I'm glad that you thought that I did it justice.
Yeah, because I
Oh,
just edited it
absolutely.
together. He put it all. He put all of the actual material together. I just took the video and edited it. So, yeah, but no, he did a good job putting all that together. I mean, for a lot of the all of the games we've done, I think it's really because like I'll use my wife as a bit of a tester, if you will, and I'll put her down, have her watch them, and like, do you understand what's going on? She's like, I think so. I think I could follow along. 'Cause she's not a gamer.
That's okay. That's perfect.
Exactly. So she can follow along. I think we're on the right path. What do you guys think sets Shattered apart from other tabletop games, other tabletop RPGs?
I think for me it'd be the as much as I love saying the lore, but I think in this case it's actually the character creation and the progression system. We don't have the classes or even the levels that most places do, so you have a lot more choices to what you want to do throughout the entire game. You're not locked into playing, a fighter or a mage. You could do it all at once if you so choose.
Yeah, I know personally I like that. I mean, unfortunately, Shattered is the one game I did not get to play when we were filming. That's one of my favorite aspects about it. Just in reading it, watching the watching the game that we shot. Is that classless system where you're not locked into like being a rogue or anything. Like I know there's been a couple D&D games that Conrad GM'd over the years that I'd play and I'd start a character. Halfway through I'm like, I shouldn't have gone rogue. Maybe I should have tried a mage or something. And this kind of gives you the ability to try everything.
Been there, man. There's always a lull in levels in D&D classes where you're just like, this level kind of sucks. I don't get anything out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't feel like you're growing. Whereas
Yeah.
like if you have that I'm going to assign experience in something I feel is necessary for me, then you've taken real control over your personal growth there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we talked about it earlier. I'm an IT guy, but I might not always be an IT guy. Maybe someday I'll become a teacher or a bus driver or something. I don't know, a bus driver. That I don't have aspirations to be a bus driver, but you never know. But I might do something else in life, and so this kind of allows you to try out different things. Whereas like a lot of other games, you're locked into that one class, and that particular character can't grow into something that might be completely different than where you started out. So
I think the character customization is probably one of the strongest aspects, because I know anybody that has ever played D&D and been the GM, there's at least one or more, in some cases, people trying to do homebrew classes of some kind because there just wasn't something they really wanted to play specifically.
That's extremely true. And I end up homebrewing a ton of stuff as the GM because I see the lack of interest in the individual things. So yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think the last D&D game, and Lost tends to run a lot of the games that we play, but the last D&D game that he ran, it took me I think we had 3 weeks notice, ahead of time to get a character together. And I didn't really fully know what I wanted to do until maybe the night before the first session. it just took me that whole time to like hem and haw through everything until I found something I thought I was okay with. So yeah, I mean, there's the customization part, though I know we're not unique in that aspect. There are plenty of other fantastic games out there that do give you open progression and things like that. I think the thing that sets us most apart is definitely the lore to a certain extent, but I think as I feel arrogant even suggesting this, but I think that us, the developers, actually do set the game apart a little bit, and not so much as like in terms of like look at what we've created or anything like that, but we have from the get-go been very intentional with trying to be open with our community, be upfront, be available to talk to people if they have questions. There's so many dev teams that kind of, for whatever reason, not necessarily good or bad, but they just kind of exist out there, and then they'll put out a book, or they'll put out an expansion or a splat book or something like that. And you never really hear from them. We've tried to really make sure that we're part of the community that's forming around our game, and I think that probably is our strongest aspect.
And that is extremely cool. I mean, on any business level where some sort of developer is constantly working with the consumer in general terms, but in this case, I mean the fans. The very early development, it would be like the fandom that's gathered, and to take their thoughts into consideration and also to help them just play the game. Yeah, that's extremely cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So you guys have so many cool races that are unique and mesh well. Did you have other racers that were cut from the final product, or did you just have like a bunch, or did you methodically build one at a time? Like, we have our humans now. What's next? Like the ellipse, and then speak a little bit about that process.
And how did you come up with Florvana? I gotta know. You talked about that too.
That was Kickstarter.
Yeah, actually, that was a Kickstarter tier where if somebody backed it, it was $800. If somebody put in $800, in addition to everything else, we'd work with them to develop a race.
That's actually really cool. That's really cool. So more about that community.
Yeah, well, it was funny because we had initially started off with like 5 tiers of like create your own monster, and then 5 tiers of like create your own NPC, and people just ate those up. So we added more of those tiers, and then after seeing those get gobbled up too, we're like, hey, what if we just put in like a higher level tier, something kind of expensive to like create your own race. Like, you'll get the race art for it. We'll work with you to develop the lore for the race, and then we'll send you a poster with the race art and all this other stuff. And somebody picked it up, and God, the Florvana were the missing link.
They really were.
We really needed them. They added I can't even quantify how critical they are to the lore of the world now.
Shattered would not be Shattered if we hadn't have had our Kickstarter when we did and had that race added.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually really, really cool. So, and they're such a unique race too. Like I in learning about Trumpet Royale, which is Paul's character that he played in our game, kind of learning about that and learning about Florvana, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. But I didn't necessarily also mean to jump on top of the other question too, but
no, that's okay.
But no, I mean, like, were there other races that you guys ended up, scrapping, or was everything like really methodically, kind of picked out and crafted?
I know a few of them wound up evolving into what they are now. They weren't originally like that. Like the ellipse weren't the ellipse then when we started, and it took a few iterations to get them to where they are.
Yeah, I don't know if I could say anything we did was exactly intentional.
There was the
intent, not in the planned sense, anyway.
I know, like, we wanted everything originally human based or human offshoots, and then the Florvana just came out of basically left field, and it's like, okay, we can add this in, and we figure out how and where and why, and it wound up a great addition.
Yeah, I think the only race that was really drastically different, they all feel like they've always been there to me at this point, but before the Rekindled existed in their current state, Paul, one of our other guys on the team, was trying really hard to develop a psionically empowered race, and ultimately they became the Rekindled, but before that they were called the Kinsei. And we had a little bit of lore going for them where everything they did, it was very stereotypically a Buddhist monk kind of everything in balance sort of thing. They had some their homeland was some floating mountain in the clouds, and they were all warrior monks and that sort of thing. And it just didn't sit well with us for a while, and eventually at some point we scrapped them and put their Rekindled in their place. But that's the only race I can think of that we had before that doesn't exist now.
So to build on what we were just talking about with the races and whatnot, so each of you, what is your ideal character to build in Shattered?
Well, for me, it would be stereotypical for a grappling vampire. I really enjoy our hand-to-hand and grappling functionality, and I always love vampire. And I also like adding in parts of stealth and parts of our conviction, so I can there's a talent called Light Feed that vampires can get. It's a racial talent, and basically it lets them sap the light around them. And then combine that with the darkness, martial darkness, you can jump from shadow to or create shadows, and there's stealth, which do the shadow jumping, sorry. And then you can combine all that together with martial art. You create the shadows, you shadow jump, and then you grapple them and bite the crap out of them and heal yourself.
Wow, yeah, that does sound very cool. And something that's not necessarily a set track, where in other games it's okay, this is a planned thing. It's just a matter of, wow, this you put together several aspects that are very creative, and now something super cool has come from it.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. And Tex has been iterating that build for a long time, and it's only gotten better. I know for whatever reason, I tend to really like playing the Wretched. I don't quite know why. Just a tidbit about me: I hate casters. I hate casters. I don't play them. I don't like keeping track of spell lists. I don't like keeping track of which level spells I have at which time of which day or whatever. And so I've never really played a caster in D&D or any of its variants. And there's very few games that have ever actually made me enjoy being a caster. That played a lot into how we developed our magic system. But even still, I still don't play casters that often. I tend to play martial artists. I really adore how we put the martial arts system together. And I tend to be, fisticuffs, brawler, maybe throw on some claws or something for some extra damage, but that's pretty much the extent of it.
And for me, I actually thoroughly enjoy our character gen, so I make a totally different character every single time I play. It's probably the only, playing D&D or 40K or something, I will make specific builds and plan it out and get it perfect. But yeah, no, every time I play Shared, I do it a different way.
That's awesome, and you obviously have the ability to do that.
To echo Zip there, I think for that was already last year, our launch party live stream we did, he and I were, actually a couple of us were kind of trying to sync up talents, because there are certain ones that are teamwork talents. We had both gotten the either shield or the shield arm mutation and gotten the brothers in arms talent. That way we get extra damage reduction from AoE. So you stand next to them, damage reduction, AoE, +4 to your block or something like that. So we would try to sync some stuff up so we get some extra bonuses on occasion.
And that's the other thing, going back to one of your earlier questions, that thinking about it now, I think sets Shattered apart a little bit, is that there's everything you do, you can do with intention. Nothing you pick should be picked lightly, because if you're building like hand-to-hand brawler, if you throw fear at me, I'm in a lot of trouble. So, everything you pick has weight to it, and that even applies to combat, where, as I'm sure you guys experienced, there's a lot of ability to be very strategic and intentional about your decisions. And I have not quite experienced that same level of strategy in other games.
Yeah, I do personally really love that the way initiative is like if your team wins, then you then choose who goes in what order. And there's no like, oh, I'm going to delay my action and set myself down like a meter. No, it's you will plan out who goes in what order in order to obtain the best tactical approach. And I think that's incredibly cool.
We had some people complaining in the beginning when we proposed that idea, some backers, that, we were giving extra bonuses to large parties. That's entirely intentional. If you go to run up against a large party, they have an advantage because they have this massive party. They have all the extra people. They can do more things. So it was also a way to encourage foresight, thinking through your actions, not just run in there and hack and slash. But should we run in there, hack and slash? Should we try and disrupt them first? Should we try and sneak attack them? And what's our plan forward? Do we just run in all dwarven, battle rager style, or do we actually take our time?
Leroy Jenkins doesn't play out well in Shattered.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it is. It's another level to the strategy that when you're coming across like a larger group, like you were just saying. And another thing that, I think is cool, that you should be penalized if you're 5 charging against 20, like they have a tactical advantage.
I mean, I wouldn't arm wrestle like Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Well, I would, just to say I did it, but
wouldn't bet any money.
Yeah,
no, I wouldn't put any money down on it. Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, cool. So, and I know that we ourselves have spoken about artwork since yours is just so striking and beautiful, and where tabletop games are all set in your imagination. So can you talk a little bit about the art industry and using it to put together your book?
I can tell you that because really the best person to ask is probably Zip, but my 2 cents is that we spent hours and days combing through websites looking for the perfect artists, and it took so much time, but it was worth it, obviously. But it was just that it was so core to how we designed this game.
No, it was definitely worth it. 'Cause, I mean, the artwork in this game is gorgeous.
So, Lost, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I've got some words on this, but I figure I've been talking a lot. I'll let you go first.
I mean, we did spend a lot of time on artists. I will say, if you are commissioning something, you have to be extremely precise in how you want to word things or what details you want to make sure come through. Because, we had a few artworks that came through, and it's like, it isn't exactly what we had wanted.
Yeah, there were 3 or 4 pieces that we got that did not really meet what our intention was behind the brief we sent to the artist. One guy, unfortunately, was just like, hey, you get what you pay for, so this is what you get. Unfortunately, as with anything else when you're dealing with creatives of any type, us being writers, them being artists, you obviously have to find a way to bridge the gap to have a conversation.
Differences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we had kind of set out to do early on was to approach our artists like they were part of the team. and we send along what we want, but like every single time, if there was something that we gave our list of details that we needed to see, and we said anything else outside of that, please let your creativity take over. If you have an idea, go with it. We'd love to see what you're coming up with. And so we had, early on when we first started getting some of the race art that was done by the very talented Alex Chaudray, based out in Paris. We had kind of given our briefs for the different races at the time, and then he'd come back with the art, and the art at that point started to inform the world. There's a lot of stuff that came through from his pieces, especially, that started to change how we were writing the races and things like that. So you might be surprised if you're out looking for artists, if you find a couple that you can actually build a real relationship with and not just a transaction, you might find that your game is better for it in the long run. Yeah. And then just keep in mind it's a numbers game. Like, you just got to ask a lot of people, and you got to be willing to, accept that maybe that one person is going to say no, or say they're too busy, or they give you a price and it's too expensive,
or they just ignore you.
Yeah, or just ignore you. It's certainly possible, but don't lowball people. These are people they have to pay bills too. Yep. The art is certainly worth the money, and it's definitely worth. I can't tell you how many times at the game store I've seen a game with a cool cover that got my attention, and then on the inside it's like scribbly pencil art.
Yeah.
And it immediately, like, I know we say don't judge a book by its cover, but the reality is that to a certain extent we do. If a developer can't put forth the effort to get good art for their game, and that's obviously very subjective, then it just comes across to me like, you don't care about it as much. You're not presenting yourself as well as you could be.
Yeah.
But that may be kind of elitist on my part, but
but I mean, I definitely think there's a grain of truth there, because, like, you look at some of the artwork in a company. So I mean, I'll go with Wizards of the Coast, company that, Dungeons and Dragons, Magic, all this stuff, and they've got this amazing artwork, and that's all, this mainstream stuff. What people are used to seeing when they look at a finished product. And then, obviously there's a bunch of indie games out there and independently, crafted games. And I think a lot of people, they, especially if they just pick up the book at the store, they may not know, hey, this is an independently made game versus this is, something that was put out by a corporation, what have you. And they might see that artwork, but then, yeah, like you said, they open it up inside and they're like, oh, what is this? So I definitely think, as elitist as you think it might have sounded, there's definitely some truth there,
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, sorry.
Let's say I don't think it sounds elitist at all. I think it just sounds realistic. Because it's a great concept, like don't judge a book by its cover, and people will actively attempt to do that. But the second we look at literally anything, like there's a gut reaction. Your brain isn't turned off. Like it makes everything that you take in, your brain is forming connections immediately. And that's just how your brain is. So that's just true. Like you look at a cover and it's like, you can stop yourself and say, okay, let me like look deeper. Sure. That's the higher cognitive piece, but the first impression. And I think too, with the business aspect of it is, okay, well, did this person believe enough in their product to like forego, buying a new video game, instead spend that $60 on an art commission for this game that they're trying to put out.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like that's the type of stuff that comes across, especially if you're thinking from like the business aspect of it.
Yeah. I think go ahead. Sorry, Tex.
I think another thing to look at from my perspective is being more also heavy on the business side. Did they spend their money wisely when they bought the artwork, or did they spend their time wisely when they made it themselves? Because as the joke always is, time is money. Well, did you use you drawing it for days on end, was that worth the result, or could you have instead, done your normal job and spent that money towards buying a better piece of art? And it's not always going to be equal for everybody. Like, some people are just amazing artists and, can draw this amazing artwork. And there's people who can't. And do you try and train yourself to draw, or do you just go, screw it, and buy a good piece of art instead?
No, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's similar with like websites, right? Like you may find a fantastic piece of software, but if their website looks like it's been built for GeoCities, then what are the odds are that you're going to buy it? And there's a certain amount of like work that goes into presenting yourself to a potential customer, and if you don't put your best foot forward, that best as you can afford reasonably, then you're going to miss out. The other thing I think with art too is like art is something along with any art in general, like that being written word, music, anything else, it inspires emotions and ideas inside a person's head. And so if your art really doesn't capture someone's imagination, then how far is that gonna the art should serve to like hook people in, and once they think like, oh man, this looks great, I want to read about this, then you got them, but you got to get them there first.
The last question that we had previously prepared, and you did touch on it a little bit earlier, was just, can we expect additional content in the future?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I mean, as if for anyone listening to this, if they have a copy of our game, first of all, thank you. If not, like, we have very quickly put out a more detailed world map than what you can find in the book. It's got like travel distances and miles and kilometers to from the major cities to all of the major locations. And that's up. You can get that on our website and Drive-Thru-RPG. That's free. Chapter 1 of our campaign that we've been working on should take you, a 1 to 2, possibly 3 sessions in total. Is up on our website and Drive-Thru-RPG as well, and that's free. We want to we don't want to be like one of those teams that's like, hey, here's the game, and then hey, what day 1 DLC, and
Yeah.
$15 and you'll unlock this part of it or anything. We definitely do want to put things out there that are going to give people added value to what they're buying from with the core book. We are working on a number of other projects. Some I don't really want to go into at the moment, but a couple of Shattered related projects, expansion material and such, and then a couple of non-Shattered related projects as well. So
Awesome.
we've definitely got a lot of ideas floating around out there.
That's beautiful. And you'd mentioned it a couple times in there, but you guys just want to plug where we can actually get this information. I know you said Drive-Thru-RPG, but your website as well, and any other places might be able to find your product.
Yeah, so we are on. You can buy, order physical copies of the book and digital copies of the game on our website at neverdarkenough.com. We're available on Drive-Thru-RPG, Amazon.com, though I don't know how our stock is right now. And given
we've got one left, and we can't replenish them. So
yep. Until Amazon starts taking in non-critical goods, that'll be iffy. But we have one up there right now if you really want to grab one on Amazon. We're also on itch.io, and we partnered with a small indie distributor called Indie Press Revolution. So you can buy physical copies directly through them. If you happen to own a game store or know someone who owns a game store, you can order directly from them, and they'll give you retailer rates, and also give you access to provide PDF copies to anybody that purchases the hardcover.
There's also a kind of newer one called Gumroad. It's just another PDF platform.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, guys, definitely check it out. This is a fantastic game. These guys have obviously put a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort into it. I can't say enough about it, and I haven't even played it yet. So, Conrad, is there anything else you want to add before we let everybody have the afternoon back?
I have played it, and I loved it. And that was the reaction of all the players. Granted, like I spent time crafting everyone's characters, and I've known them for years and years, so I know them pretty well. So I made each character like, I know you're gonna like this. I know you're gonna like this. And but still, despite that, the second we finished playing our game, everyone said, "When are we playing this again?"
Yeah.
You have no idea how excited that makes us and the team when we hear something like that from somebody. Giddy is probably the best word for it.
Yeah. Hey, no, I mean, I can definitely understand, when somebody appreciates your labor of love,
Well, we definitely do. We definitely do appreciate your time and everything that you guys have been doing. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This has been great. We've been able to do some cool stuff with with the episodes, or I've been able to do some cool stuff with the episodes of Shattered, with a lot of the artwork you guys have provided and things like that. So there's been a pretty cool collaboration.
Looking forward to whatever we do in the future with you guys.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Same.
All right, I just want to say thanks again to the creators of Shattered, Tex, Lost, and Zip. There are 3 of the apparently 6 creators of Shattered that belong to It's Never Dark Enough, or INDE. So I've definitely thanked them for their time today and talking with us about their game, their vision, and what it can do to kind of bring some therapy to the world, especially in the times we're in at the moment. For the Degecast, I am Nate Lindberg. Conrad, who are you?
And I am, of course, Conrad. And also, deepest gratitude to the creators for taking the time and making themselves so accessible to people like us and to other listeners, where Nate can tell you a little bit more about that. Yeah.
They basically said that one of the biggest things that sets them apart is the community aspect, where they try to be accessible and they try to be reachable to their audience, and that's also something that we try to do. So I definitely encourage you guys, if you want to reach out to them, please do. You can find them their website or whatnot, or if for some reason you have trouble getting in touch with them, but you're listening to this, reach out to us. Our Twitter, Degetime. You could email us, degetime@gmail.com. Facebook, Degetime. It's Degetime. Anywhere you go, just look for Degetime. You'll find us. But let us know. We can definitely get you in touch with either Tech, Zip, or Lost, or somebody else on the INDE team to answer any questions, or maybe just to chit chat. Whatever you want. We might be able to accommodate. But no, I appreciate you guys listening to this cool interview here with It's Never Dark Enough. Like I said, for the Degecast, I am Nate Lindberg. You can find me all over social media at Nate Lindberg. Follow our brand at Degetime, and we will talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Take care.